I think we've seen quite a few incidents recently, in particular the Mesut Ozil incident with the German FA. So I think racism is still out there in various forms, some more obvious than others. But yeah, I think unfortunately racism does still exist within the game and in society as well. I think usually football is going to mirror whatever's happening in society. I think the incidents and cases of discrimination post Brexit have risen quite sharply. I don't think there's been a exact correlation in the football industry, but I think there is still an undertone of racism and abuse that is going to be directed at certain players for certain characteristics that they have as part of their identity. So we mentioned the Mesut Ozil case, which is, I think, a really good one because usually racism is focused on black players. And I think Mesut Ozil's case is due to his dual heritage. So I think that's a good example to bring up of alternative forms of racism. I think Romelu Lukaku spoke before or during the World Cup about how he's treated as Congolese heritage, but playing for Belgium and the dichotomy that exists there. So I think there's always incidents that crop up. Mo Salah, who was an outstanding player in the Premier League last season, as much as he was lauded for his feats on the pitch, still received lots of racist abuse on social media in particular, which is an area where a lot of the incidents are happening. Traditionally, football has been a place where people can let off steam at the end of the week. And I think sometimes people feel that football is a fair game, especially opposition players, they're fair game. And what's the best way that I can get underneath someone's skin? Sometimes people feel that if I can say something that's racist, that's the best way to get underneath their skin. But, those thoughts are lingering, and people sometimes feel that football is a place where they can express that, whereas in an office, perhaps, they wouldn't. Kick It Out in particular is doing loads, working with all the major stakeholders in the game. So working with the Premier League, working with the Football League and the FA and the PFA, working to educate current players in particular, working to educate grassroots youngsters, people in schools, grassroots football teams. So education is a key theme for us, and also trying to empower the next generation of future football leaders, making sure that they get a strong education academically, but also growing up being aware of the issues around equality and inclusion within the game. We have to strive towards that. That is obviously the end goal, and the end goal would be that there is no kick it out because there's nothing left for us to do. I think we're a long way from that, if we're being honest. I think we're trying to unpick, decades of views and decades of stereotypical behaviour. So that's our aim. We'll see. It might not happen in my lifetime, but that's certainly the aim. I think football traditionally, as I've sort of said before, has been a bit of a networks-based kind of industry, and people tend to look after the people that are closest to them. That makes sense. But I think also because of that, other groups have sometimes been locked out of certain processes. It's also very hard to be a football manager. There's 92 football clubs, professional clubs, so there's 92 managerial jobs. It's hard once you get your managerial position to maintain that position. We know the turnover of managers is very quick and very short. So there are lots of different factors that play a part. I think what is happening now within the game has agreed that they would like to see a more representative managerial sort of workforce. You have initiatives like the Rooney Rule, which seek to get BAME candidates interviewed for specific roles. You're also seeing bursary schemes, so helping people from underrepresented groups to be able to go through the coaching process. And if we have more coaches at a grassroots level, that will hopefully filter through up into the professional game. I think the initiatives that I've mentioned is really, really good, but I think there needs to be a greater awareness of what is going on. So I don't think everyone is necessarily aware of the things that I've just mentioned. Unless you're involved in the industry, you might not know these things are happening. So it's about making sure that the word is being spread. And beyond that, just making sure that we continue to do the work that we're doing. As I said, lots of initiatives that are taking place. We just need to keep pressing forward, keep encouraging people, and keep thinking about what we can do next to make things better for the following and future generations.
There's definitely elements of it that you see amongst sort of fans online. It's not prevalent so much at stadiums, sort of overtly as you see in other countries, but definitely there's there's an undertone of it in the game. Yeah, I'm sure the entire country saw. So I think the whole uproar came after the gun tattoo incident, but there had been countless articles written about him prior to that, where he was being targeted for going out to the shops, doing sort of everyday activities with his family and whatnot. And then when you counter that and see that his treatment against other players, you can quite clearly see there's a difference. People say it's weird or a weird obsession with Sterling. I think that's a kind way of putting it. I think people were a bit scared to go out and on a limb and say, actually, do you know what? If this guy wasn't black, young, rich, he wouldn't be targeted. When you're in an office, for example, if you're employed somewhere, you're on edge because you know that your livelihood's on the line. You can't say certain things. You don't want to risk not having that paycheck come in at the end of the month. I think once you're out there, you've had a few drinks, you're in the comfort of your friendship groups, and then you're going to go watch football. It's very easy to hide and try or think that you can get away with being discriminatory in any form, not just racism, but yeah, that could be an instance where they wouldn't be so overt in an office, but match they might be. Look at what we do as an organisation in terms of the proactive stuff, the education. Our education manager Troy Townsend does quite a lot. To put it lightly, he does quite a lot in terms of he gets to grounds, he gets to stadiums up and down the country, he goes through under nines to all the way up into the first team where you're delivering educational sessions. There's instances where some of my colleagues have gone out to do sort of rehabilitative sessions with fans, etc., that have been charged or been found guilty by their clubs of committing racist incidents. And just raising awareness is the key thing, because once you're aware of something, the excuse, there's no excuse to be ignorant, but once it's been made aware, there's even less of an excuse to be ignorant. So I think that's something that we do, and that's our Monday to Friday. That's what we do. The potential managers, also the players that have played the game and want to go into management, don't feel comfortable that they're going to be given a fair shot as some of their colleagues will. Where you're seeing players that might have had a really good career but don't have the qualifications are getting first team jobs, whereas others got every qualification in the book and still struggle to find a job. So that can put a lot of people off even wanting to become a manager, is that they're not being picked. You can ask me why they're not being picked. I can't make a decision, and I can't sit here and say, okay, well, this is the definite reason. I think that boardrooms aren't as diverse and maybe are a bit apprehensive in picking a manager of colour or any BAME background. But in specific in relation to black managers, yeah, I think the main reason is I think there's not enough managers going forward, and the ones or coaches going forward, going into positions of management, and the ones that are, they've seen it firsthand. The ones that have made it have seen firsthand how difficult it is for them to make it, and I think that can cause a knock-on effect to other young managers or potential budding managers that just say, do you know what, it's not worth it. It's not worth the hassle. If you look at what we've done in the past 25 years, you'd say it's absolutely amazing, the kind of the way that this whole culture has changed in this country. But to say racism will be eradicated is very, very hard to say. It's highly unlikely due to the fact that there will always be ignorance. There will always be people that have that stigma in their mind that will allow racism to exist. So it'll be very hard to completely eradicate it. Not to say that that's not our goal, but I think it'll be difficult. But to say that certain instances or issues that we have nowadays, will we 10, 15, 20 years down the line have the same issues? I'd like to think we would.